What if the most iconic moment in human history never actually happened? For decades, we've been told one story, that in 1969, humans walked on the moon, that NASA sent astronauts 384,000 kilometers away and brought them back safely, that it was the greatest technological achievement ever recorded. But what if it wasn't? What if the footage that inspired a generation was carefully choreographed? What if the truth was hidden, in plain sight? This documentary is not a conspiracy theory. It's an investigation, a deep dive into the footage, the facts, the contradictions, and the science. Not to tell you what to believe, but to show you why so many people no longer believe what they were told. This is Exposing the Moon, NASA's greatest feat or the greatest lie. On July 20th, 1969, the world stood still. Over 600 million people, the largest live audience in history, watched as Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon and delivered the now legendary words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The United States had done it. They had beaten the Soviet Union in the space race. They had conquered space. They had reached another world. The astronauts of Apollo 11 were hailed as heroes. NASA became a global symbol of progress. And the moon landing became a sacred chapter in the modern myth of human achievement. But almost immediately, there were questions. Inconsistencies in the footage. Strange lighting. Unexplained physics. Missing data. And over the years, even stranger behavior from the astronauts themselves. At first, those who questioned the mission were called cranks, conspiracy theorists, anti-science. But over time, things changed. More people began to notice what didn't add up. Journalists started asking harder questions. Engineers and physicists began speaking out. And a new generation, armed with better tools, higher resolution footage, and access to declassified information, began to pull apart the official narrative. Not out of hatred for NASA. Not out of ignorance. But out of a desire for truth. Because if the moon landing was real, it should be bulletproof. And if it wasn't, the world deserves to know. Shadows, lighting, and the physics that don't add up. Let's start with the most basic question. How does light behave in space? On the moon, there is no atmosphere. No clouds. No light scattering. Only one source of light, the sun. That means shadows cast on the lunar surface should be sharp, parallel, and perfectly consistent. But in the Apollo 11 photographs, they're not. In several iconic images, shadows fall in different directions, some diagonal, others straight. Some intersect, some appear curved. According to NASA, this is due to the uneven lunar terrain. Rocks and slopes supposedly distorted the angles. But lighting experts, including film industry veterans and professional photographers, aren't buying it. In Hollywood, multiple light sources are used to create soft edges, backlighting, and eliminate harsh contrast. What we see in many of the Apollo photos looks eerily similar. Balanced light, soft shadows, clear visibility even in what should be deep shadow. In one famous photo of Buzz Aldrin, he is standing in the full shadow of the lunar module, and yet he's perfectly lit, head to toe. How? If the only light is the sun, and he's in shadow, then he should be barely visible, like a silhouette. NASA says the moon's surface is reflective and bounced sunlight back onto him. But physics says otherwise. The moon has an albedo, reflectivity, of just 0.12. It reflects only 12% of the light it receives. That's less than asphalt. Now imagine filming someone standing in the shadow of a car in a parking lot, with only asphalt around them. They'd be almost invisible without an extra light. Yet in the Apollo footage, the shadowed astronaut appears glowing, like under a soft fill light. Other anomalies include hotspots, areas in the frame that are disproportionately lit, resembling focused studio lighting. Objects and terrain behind the astronauts appearing brighter than they logically should. Strong backlighting that creates defined silhouettes, but somehow still illuminates front-facing gear. Even the direction of some shadows contradicts logic. If the sun is behind the astronaut, his shadow should stretch in front of him. In some photos, we see multiple shadows extending in inconsistent directions, something that can only be achieved with additional light sources. Filmmakers use this technique every day. Nature does not. So we must ask, if this was filmed on the moon, why does it behave like a controlled studio set? The flag that waved in a vacuum. Few images from the Apollo missions are as iconic as the American flag standing tall on the moon. It's the symbol that defined the end of the space race, a bold statement that the US had done what no one else could. But look closely at the footage, and something is very wrong. In several clips, especially from Apollo 11 and Apollo 15, the flag moves. Not just once. Not just when it's touched. It waves, ripples, and even appears to flutter. And yet there is no atmosphere on the moon. The moon has no air, no wind, no molecules to carry movement. In a vacuum, if you move something, it stops moving almost immediately due to lack of resistance and lack of medium. NASA explains it this way. The astronauts twisted the pole while inserting it into the ground. That motion caused the flag to jiggle. And to keep the flag visible in photos, a horizontal rod was used at the top to hold it out like a curtain. Sounds reasonable, but here's what the footage shows. The flag continues to move for several seconds after the astronaut lets go. In some clips, the bottom corner of the flag flicks as if caught by a breeze, even when no one is nearby. In slow motion, the fabric oscillates, not just trembles, a movement pattern typical of cloth in air, not in vacuum. And in one clip, the flag moves before the astronaut touches it, as if reacting to something off camera. Wind? Airflow? Camera rig? There shouldn't be any of those on the moon. A group of engineers tried to simulate this behavior in a vacuum chamber on Earth. Their results? The flag's motion stopped immediately once it was released. Exactly what you'd expect. Yet the Apollo flag swings and bounces just as it would on Earth. And if that wasn't strange enough, there's something else missing from every Apollo photo and video. Where are the stars? And what else did NASA forget to show us? We'll uncover that in the next episode.